On a single day, Friday the 13th, 1307, the most powerful multinational organization in the world was dismantled. This wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a state-sponsored massacre. This extreme act was a desperate king's only response to a revolutionary force he could neither own nor control, because the Templars held a secret, a source of power so profound it could unmake the very idea of a king. And we are here to uncover it. To understand this secret, you must first stand with them at their birth. Imagine a road, baked by the sun of the Holy Land. You are a pilgrim, far from home, your life's savings stitched into the hem of your tunic. Every shadow on that road holds a bandit's knife. Every friendly face could be a mask. This is the world that created the Templars. In 1119, 9 knights made a sacred vow. They would live in poverty, chastity, and obedience. They would be a shield for the weak, a sword for the innocent. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. Remember that name, the poor fellow soldiers. It is the first thread in this divine riddle. For years, these 9 knights lived on alms, their poverty a symbol of their piety. But the problem of the road remained. How do you protect a pilgrim from a thief? You can ride beside them, sword drawn. But a better way is to make sure the pilgrim has nothing to steal. And here, in this simple, elegant solution, the Templar secret was born. Imagine you are that pilgrim again. But this time, before you set foot on that dangerous road, you enter the Templar Preceptory in London. It is a fortress, austere and imposing. You hand your gold, all of it, to a knight whose face is etched with vows you cannot comprehend. He does not give you a receipt. He gives you a letter, a slip of vellum marked with a cipher, a code known only to the order. The parchment feels impossibly light in your hand. It is the sum of your future, yet it weighs nothing. You travel across the world. You are stopped, you are searched, but you have nothing. Your true wealth is not on your person. It is an idea, a promise held in the mind of a holy order. When you finally arrive, weary and worn in Jerusalem, you walk to another Templar fortress. You present the letter. The knight examines the code, matches it to a ledger, and then, from a locked chest, he returns your fortune to you. The pact is fulfilled, and with it, the world has just changed forever. They had not invented a new way to fight. They had invented a new way to believe. They had created a system built not on gold, but on the single most valuable commodity in the cosmos: trust. This system, this sacred promise, exploded across the world. Why? Because a king can be capricious. A king can die, his promises turning to dust with his bones. A kingdom can fall, its currency becoming worthless overnight. But the Knights Templar were not a kingdom. They were an idea, sworn to God and answering only to the Pope. Their promise wasn't backed by an army, but by the perceived authority of heaven itself. Their network was the first truly international corporation, accountable to no earthly power. Their vow of poverty was the key. An individual knight owned nothing, not even the shirt on his back. He could therefore not be corrupted. But the order could own everything. That single, simple service for pilgrims became a torrent of wealth and influence. Soon it wasn't just pilgrims. It was merchants, it was barons, it was kings. If you wanted to finance a war, you didn't go to another king. You went to the temple in Paris. If you wanted to secure your family's fortune, you entrusted it to the Templars. They held the deeds to vast tracts of land. They owned farms, vineyards, ports, and an entire fleet of ships that dominated the Mediterranean. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ were now the bankers to all of Christendom. And with that power came a dangerous pride, a form of hubris. They began to believe their divine mandate made them untouchable. They operated as a state within a state, their fortresses immune to local laws, their wealth beyond the reach of any tax collector. They answered to no king, and that is what sealed their doom. Let us return to that king, Philip IV of France, a man known as the Fair. He had waged costly wars, and his kingdom was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. And who was his primary creditor? To whom did he owe a debt so vast it could swallow his entire kingdom? The Knights Templar. The pact was broken, and with it, a century of divine protection was now just a memory. Imagine you are Philip now. In your own capital city of Paris stands a fortress, the Temple, more secure and wealthier than your own palace. Within its walls is an organization that holds your debts, that moves money and influence across your borders without your permission, and whose leaders answer not to you, but to a distant pope. They are not your subjects. They are your creditors. You see an order that has grown far beyond its original purpose. They are no longer simple guardians of the road. They are a rival power, a power built on a secret you cannot seize. For what was the secret truly? Was it a hidden relic, the Holy Grail, or the head of John the Baptist? Those are the legends. The reality was far more dangerous. The Templar secret was the knowledge that a promise, when perfectly trusted, is more powerful than a sword. That credit is more powerful than gold. That a network united by a sacred vow is more powerful than a kingdom united by a crown. Their secret was the invention of a world where kings were no longer the ultimate authority. You cannot steal a promise. You cannot seize trust with an army. You can only do one thing. You must destroy the men who made the promise. So Philip laid his trap. He could not default on his debt, for that would show weakness. Instead, he chose a far darker path. He accused them of the unthinkable, heresy. He fabricated tales of spitting on the cross, of worshipping a demon named Baphomet, of obscene initiation rites. He attacked not their wealth, but the very source of their power, their sacred reputation. He had to burn the idea of their holiness to the ground so he could get his hands on their gold. On that Friday the 13th, under horrific torture, confessions were extracted. The spell was broken. The untouchable soldiers of God were rendered mortal, their sacred trust shattered by the very mundane instruments of a king's dungeon. Philip didn't just execute men, he executed an idea. He proved that in the great battle between two forms of power, the raw, brutal force of a desperate king could in the end extinguish the ethereal power of sacred trust. He seized their assets, erased his debt, and consolidated his own power. But an idea, once unleashed, can never be truly killed. The Templars were destroyed, their leaders burned at the stake, but their secret, the system they had perfected, bled out into the world. Other banking houses in Italy rose to take their place. The concept of international credit, of a promise being as good as gold, became the foundation of our modern world. The great irony is that the Templars are gone, but their secret power now rules us all. We live in a world governed not by kings, but by a global financial system built on the very principles of credit and trust that they pioneered. A system that crosses borders, that operates beyond the control of individual nations, and that answers to its own internal logic. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ discovered a power greater than any kingdom, and a king in his terror destroyed them for it. But all he really managed to do was set their ghost free. And that ghost haunts the ledger of every bank, every stock market, and every transaction that clicks across the globe to this very day. They lost the battle, but their secret won the war for the soul of the world.